we have Tom here as our speaker. Tom is the CEO of Stratabeat, a B2B organic growth agency focused on SEO, CRO, content marketing, and web design. At a previous role, Tom was the director of strategy at iProspect. And through his career, Tom has developed marketing strategies for Intel, AT&T, GE, Hewlett-Packard or HP, Appfolio, Freshworks, and many more. I can't think of a better person to have on our webinar to talk about B2B SEO strategies. Tom, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bernard. So it is great being here with everyone. I'm going to share my screen. So really excited to talk with everyone. We're going to be looking at a benchmark study that we looked at over 250 B2B technology websites. And what we really wanted to do was figure out what is working in SEO today. So not theoretically, not hearsay, not what someone might be writing in a blog post, but really looking at the data and validating exactly what is working today. As Bernard mentioned, there's so many changes in the search landscape that we wanted this to be evidence-based, right? We wanted it all to be data-backed suggestion, all data-backed insights and data-backed recommendations for you. And so just to clarify the scope, so we looked at 250 B2B SaaS websites and over 15,000 data points as part of this benchmark study. The analysis was done by Stratabeat. And I will just mention that it was done in partnership with an organization called CMO Huddles. It's a group of leading CMOs. And so you can see their logo here and there. And that's just to give some context to that. So what we're going to go over today, I'll just walk you through the framework of the study first, and then we will get into it, which will be lots of fun. We'll look at different data points, and I'll walk you through what is impacting SEO, what doesn't impact SEO. We'll also look at the level of impact of each of these tactics as well. Then what are the top performers doing, and give you some nice takeaways from today. Ideally, what I would love to do is have you walk away with very actionable recommendations for what to do with your SEO program. So with all of this, trying to make it very actionable. And I would like to point out that there are different ways of approaching SEO, right? What we love doing is what we call precision engineered SEO. Think of it this way. You can build anything, right? Like you can build a bicycle, right? If you want a mode of transportation, you can build a bicycle. And let's say you want to go from, I don't know, Boston to Chicago. So a bicycle will get you there, but it'll probably be a very, very bumpy ride. You're probably going to get a lot of flat tires along the way. It might rain, right? Depending on the time of year, it might snow. It might be pretty tough slog to get there, right? Or you could build a Lamborghini. Obviously, completely different. You're going to get there much faster. It's going to be so much more enjoyable, fantastic experience. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be thrilling. And you can see how a precision engineered transportation vehicle is going to be completely different than, say, a bicycle, right? So what we're trying to do with this study is really help you precision engineer your SEO. Again, so it's evidence-based, it's data-backed, and you can explain to anyone in your company, you can explain to your CEO exactly why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, so let's look at the framework. How can you use this study? How can you use the information that we're going to walk through today? So some of the things that I'd love for you to learn is, what companies that have strong SEO results, what are they doing, right? And then you can look at what you're doing, what your marketing team is doing, and compare it to the benchmarks, right? And you can see where there might be gaps, and then you can decide whether you want to fill those gaps or whether you might be ahead of the curve in certain areas. Also, want to see, like we mentioned, there's a lot of changes in the search landscape today. Google is changing a lot. So how is Google actually handling B2B technology websites today? Right? And then how do very specific SEO activities and tactics correlate with SEO success? So the methodology that we use, so we looked at, as I mentioned, 250 different B2B websites. If they had a low level of traffic, we excluded them. If they had over 10 million monthly unique organic visitors, we excluded those as well. And so what we tried to do was narrow it down to a database of 250 resulting websites that more accurately represented the majority of the market, right? We're not saying it represents the entire market, but we did want to make sure there was sufficient traffic so that there was a sufficient sample size to evaluate. And so any site that had traffic that was too low, we really had to exclude that. And then any website that had over 10 million organic monthly visits, we had to exclude that as well, because what we found was it was skewing the data dramatically. And so we feel like the way that we parse the data is going to be most helpful for gleaning insights for you. Also, we're going to be talking a lot about percentage growth. What we mean by that is we looked at the data from January of 2023, and then we compared it with the results from January of 2024. So a full 1 year period, year over year results. So anytime that I'm saying that there was, a 100% increase or a 50% increase or a 5% increase, just understand that what I'm referring to is from January of 2023 to January of 2024. And finally, just a word of caution. We're going to give you the data, right? We're just going to give it to you straight, right? We're not going to hold anything back. However, you have to understand that this is just data, right? What the insights that we can glean from this is all correlation. It is not necessarily causation. So I just want everyone to be aware the data is the data, right? And we're going to interpret it the best that we can. And I do feel very strongly that the way that we're interpreting it is accurate. However, this is the real world. We don't have access to the Google algorithm. And so it is correlation. It is not necessarily causation. So just keep that in mind, little caveat. All right. So we talked about the framework, gave you a good context. Now let's get into the study itself, because this is the fun part, right? Where we're looking at the actual data, what moves the needle, what doesn't move the needle, all that good stuff. So let's start with a question that our agency, Stratabeat, gets asked all the time, which is, does blogging frequency matter? Does it really impact your SEO results? And the answer is that it does. It absolutely does. So in looking at this group of 250 B2B websites, what we found was there was kind of this magic spot where the companies that were blogging 5 to 8 times a month were doing exceptionally well. And were doing much, much better than those websites that were blogging, say, 1 to 4 times a month, so less frequently. And we're going to get into whether you can blog more than 5 to 8 times a month. The quick answer is yes, you absolutely can. And there are plenty of great examples of companies that are doing that. But we'll get into that in a bit. So the core learning here is, does it impact our Google top 10 keywords? And the answer is absolutely it does. And so for those websites that were blogging 1 to 4 times a month, so essentially weekly, they did see an increase in Google top 10 keywords. The increase was 10.8% over the 1 year period, January 2023 to January 2024. However, with just a little bit of an incremental effort, knocking it up to 5 to 8 times a month. So, in certain cases, that's not even 2 times a week. In other cases, it's going to be 2 times a week if you're doing 8 times a month, right? And you can get much better results, right? What we found was the websites that were blogging 5 to 8 times a month improved their Google top 10 keywords by 47.9%. So close to 50% improvement. So dramatically different, right? So if you're comparing the growth rate, right, you're talking about a 4.4x improvement in a rankings growth rate if you go from blogging less frequently to blogging 5 to 8 times a month. Pretty fantastic, right? I mean, that's an amazing ROI for an incremental effort. Now, does it help if you're blogging more than that? Yes, we're going to get into the top performers a little later in the discussion, and the top performers do blog more frequently than 5 to 8 times. Specifically, they blog 11 times a month on average, the top performers in our database, right? Also, if you look at websites that are larger, the super sized websites that bring in more than 10,000 monthly organic visits a month, 10 million, right? So if you're looking at the websites with more than 10 million monthly organic visits, some of them are blogging 50 times a month, even 90 or 100 times a month, and achieving extraordinary results. Again, what we want to do is look at the vast majority of the market, those websites that are under 10 million monthly organic visits a month. And for those, if you're blogging 5 to 8 times a month, you're heading in a fantastic direction. You're going to achieve much, much better results than if you're blogging less frequently. But the results do not stop with just Google rankings, right? We're not just talking about organic rankings here. We're also talking about traffic. Does it improve your organic traffic to be blogging 5 to 8 times a month? The answer is very, very clearly yes, it improves your results. So not just organic rankings, but organic traffic as well. So in our study, what we found was those websites that were blogging less frequently achieved a 12.1% improvement in organic traffic over the course of the year. Those websites, in comparison, who were blogging 5 to 8 times a month, achieved 103.3% of an improvement in organic traffic. So you can see here, night and day difference. It makes so much more sense to be blogging 5 to 8 times a month as opposed to 1 to 4 times a month. If you are blogging 1 to 4 times a month, hopefully this is convincing you very, very clearly of the value of increasing your cadence, increasing your publishing frequency. On the organic side, think of it this way, right? And if this is something that you need to convince others internally, your CEO, your CMO, whoever it is, of the value of increasing your blogging frequency. Just to understand that in our study, what we found was those who were blogging 5 to 8 times a month achieved an organic traffic growth rate that was 8.5 times that of the websites that were blogging less frequently. Where else are you going to find an ROI like this? I mean, this is a slam dunk. So we strongly, strongly recommend that you take guidance from this data. You take guidance from what we're seeing in the search marketplace, and you increase your cadence for blogging. And look, if you're already blogging 5 to 8 times a month, fantastic. You're on your way. And does it help to increase that further? Sure, but we want to make sure that at minimum you're blogging 5 to 8 times a month. So it helps with organic rankings. It helps with organic traffic. Does it also help with backlinks? And the quick answer is yes. Yes, it does. So what we found was blogging 5 to 8 times a month, those websites increased their backlink growth rate by 33% more than those websites that were blogging 1 to 4 times a month. So comparatively, a 33% higher growth rate. Pretty extraordinary. So across the board, whether we're looking at rankings, traffic, backlinks, again, it's very, very clear the benefits of doing this. And here's our argument. This is low-hanging fruit. If you're already blogging, let's say that your brand is already blogging, that means you already have the operations set up, right? You have your copywriter or team of copywriters in place. You have your content manager in place. You have your publishing tech stack in place. You have your publishing process in place. All of this is in place. All you need to do is amp up the volume. That's an incremental effort, right? This is low-hanging fruit for you. And so again, if you're already blogging, this is a great area to start. It's low-hanging fruit. It's something that you can start doing immediately. Now, what happens if you stop blogging? We were very curious. It might be that it doesn't really matter if you stop blogging, but what we found was the exact opposite. So for those companies that stopped blogging at the end of the year or they didn't blog at all in January, they experienced a 15% decline. So remember, we're not looking at, did they stop blogging for a 6-month period or a 12-month period? We just looked at, did they stop blogging in January? And, a 15% decline for such a short period of time indicates that Google is responding much faster than certainly we've seen in the past to blogging cadences, blogging frequencies, right? And so if you stop blogging, you can expect to be hit faster and harder by Google. Whereas, if you follow the data here, just increase your frequency, increase the cadence, and you should see substantial results. All right, so that's blogging frequency. Clearly, it matters. So let's talk about audience segmentation a bit. So, okay, I've been in SEO since literally 2005, so a long time. I've worked with literally, dozens of Fortune 500 companies. I've worked with startups. I've worked with lots of different middle market companies. So I've seen a lot through the years. I've also seen a lot of advice through the years. What's interesting to me is that you don't really hear SEO experts talking about audience segmentation, right? You just don't hear it. And so we were curious. We feel that audience segmentation as a marketing strategy, period, as a marketing strategy is critical. And it does help you improve your performance in so many different ways, not just SEO. And so we were curious, well, what are the ramifications from an SEO perspective? What's the impact? What's the level of impact? Should people care about it? Or can you ignore this? Is this a minor consideration? And so we dove in, and what we looked at clearly indicated that audience segmentation does help with your SEO results. Specifically, the first thing that we found was that it boosts your Google top 10 ranking keywords. And so if you have a website, right, and you are not segmenting, for example, by industry, right? Let's say, you target healthcare, you target technology, you target hospitality, you target financial services, whatever the industries might be. What we're saying here is having explicit content, having explicit web pages in your website that targets those industries helps you achieve better SEO results. And again, this is something that, we don't really see that much. If you go to an SEO conference, I don't think I've ever heard anyone speak to this, right? So this is something that we hope is very useful for you to know. And hopefully, this is something that your competition is not doing. It's something that you can do that is going to help you gain a competitive advantage. So specifically, how much of an impact does it have? So what we found was those websites that were segmenting their audience improved the Google top 10 ranking keywords by 31.7%, so close to 32%, very substantial. Those who lacked segmentation, they also improved, but only 12%. So again, if you're taking a step back, if you're zooming out, just to put it into perspective, with segmentation, you can achieve 2.x the rankings growth rate of those websites that are not segmenting their audience. So we found this to be very interesting. We find that it perfectly aligns with our philosophy on how to do marketing, that you do want to lean into audience segmentation. You do want to lean into vertical specific marketing as much as you can. For those websites that were segmenting their audience, that did increase their Google top 10 organic rankings, because not every single site did increase their rankings. But for those websites that did segment the audience and also improved their top 10 organic rankings, the average growth rate was close to 50%. That was double the growth rate of those lacking segmentation that increased rankings as well. Double the growth rate, right? So clearly, audience segmentation, there's a lot of benefit to leaning into this. And here's the kicker. So it's not only the data, but let's take a step back and talk about this, right? Audience segmentation from the SEO lens enables you to achieve SEO results faster and easier. If you're looking for low-hanging fruit, if you're looking for, well, what can I do next? What can I do immediately now that might be a quicker win while I'm also working on longer-term, more ambitious activities? This is it, right? By targeting the long tail of industry segmented topics, what you're doing is you're really targeting the long tail, right? Again, if you're targeting specific topics for financial services or for healthcare, let's say you want to rank for CRM software, or you want to rank for accounting software or email marketing software, Imagine just doing that instead of just like trying to target CRM software. If you were targeting CRM software for healthcare, or CRM software for financial services, or CRM software for, I don't know, bakeries, right? Like you can go nuts with this depending on who you're targeting. But the point being is search volume is going to be much, much lower, but this is going to be a much more highly qualified audience. It's going to be much more highly qualified traffic, and it's going to be much more likely to convert. So yeah, what we did not see a spike in organic traffic. We want to be very, very clear with this. We saw the increase in rankings. We did not see a spike in organic traffic per se. We don't care. Why? Because the search volumes are really much lower when you're talking about this type of audience segmented long tail topics, keywords, questions, things of that nature, right? And so don't worry so much about the traffic volume here. Worry about ranking very high and attracting those really high quality, high converting clicks. That's going to help you move the needle for your business. You're going to see business performance results this way. So does it also help you with attracting backlinks? Absolutely. And so what we found was those websites that leaned into and implemented audience segmentation in the website increased the number of referring domains that they had over the course of the year by 29.3%. So almost 30% improvement in referring domains. And I should mention, we are going to be looking at referring domains as opposed to backlinks moving forward throughout the rest of today's webinar. The reason being is, you can have, let's say a website pointing links at you, and let's say it points one link at you. Let's say it points 5 links at you. Let's say it points 100 links at you. The incremental difference from Google's perspective is not that great, right? Once Google understands that there's a certain high quality referring domain, there's a website out there, a third-party website that is pointing a link to you. That registers more significantly than if you're having multiple links from that same website. So that's why we feel like it's a clearer, more accurate indicator of actual success, because sometimes the number of backlinks that you achieve can be blurred by the fact that it's coming from only a few referring domains. So we just wanted to be as clear and transparent with you as possible as to what really moves the needle. Okay, so we looked at blogging frequency. We looked at audience segmentation. Now let's start looking at different types of content. What types of content help you to move the needle the most? One of the best things that you can be doing for your SEO program is to build online tools. What we mean by that is free online tools. So, if you're talking about like an ROI calculator or a total cost of ownership calculator, or I don't know, a mortgage calculator, we just built a landing page for a client literally just a few weeks ago where we embedded a calculator. This was for payroll software. And it was looking at a comparison of payroll software versus using a PEO service. And so you can calculate the difference. We're in the process, our agency is in the process of building a whole suite of ROI calculators for our website, for example. And so it doesn't matter what specific tool you have. HubSpot has a persona builder. CoSchedule has a headline analyzer. It really doesn't matter what that tool is, as long as you're offering free tools. So there's an SEO application called Through, and the owner, the founder of the business has told me that when they launched a whole suite of free tools, lots of really significant positive benefits in terms of SEO impact, engagement, conversions, across the board. When I spoke with the CMO of Tableau software a few years ago when I was writing my first book, she confided in me that offering a free online tool wound up being their #1 leads driver. It was amazing because also the SEO benefits, it did drive literally millions of backlinks to their website as well. So clearly lots of SEO benefits, but also, in terms of real business impact, it was a leads driver, right? It was their #1 leads driver. So it was just an unbelievable experience. helped them to achieve a valuation over $1 billion at the time. So online tools really do work. We can spend the entire time just talking about online tools, but just know that they do help you achieve a higher number of Google top 10 keywords. At least according to our study, according to our data, there was very clear indication that online tools make a big difference. So offering online tools resulted in close to a 41% increase in the number of Google top 10 organic ranking keywords. And you compare that to the websites that were not offering free online tools, and they improved as well, but only 16%. So, 41% versus 16%, drastically different. Again, zooming out, you're talking about a 2.5x difference in growth rate. So, these tactics that we're walking you through have very clear ROI for your business. And again, hopefully, if you're trying to sell this internally to your CEO, to your CMO, whoever it is, or if you are a CMO, if you are a CEO, just be very aware that these are rock solid approaches to SEO that are very reliable for getting results. And there's a lot of evidence here, as you can see, that proves it out, that the majority of the time, these websites are achieving significant, substantial results this way. And the benefits do not stop with rankings. So if you're going to be launching online tools, just know the websites that we studied that offered online tools improved their organic traffic. So not rankings, but traffic, right? The actual organic traffic that they were experiencing by 20%. Those who were not offering online tools improved their traffic a little bit, 6.4%. But clearly, very, very different level of impact. Specifically, a 3.1x greater impact on your organic traffic growth rate for those that were offering online tools. So can't recommend this enough. We've seen it work countless times. It's just something that is a fantastic part of any SEO program. And this is the more common knowledge around online tools, is that they can help you in building referring domains and backlinks if you promote them the right way, right? And so what we found was, on average, those websites that were offering online tools versus those that were not, the ones that were offering the online tools had a 31% referring domain growth rate. That was, I'm sorry, if we just look at the websites that were offering online tools, close to 97% of them did increase the referring domains. So almost all of them, right? Almost all of them. So pretty much almost a guarantee that if you offer online tools, you're going to increase your referring domains. And then the average referring domain growth rate for these websites was 31%. So very significant. Okay, so clearly online tools work, right? And there's a pretty significant impact. So let's look at some other content types. How about original research? This is something that Stratabeat loves. We love doing. I mean, look, this is original research that we're talking about right here. We love it. We can't recommend it strongly enough to you, just in terms of a general marketing strategy, is to lean into original research, because there's so many different benefits to it. But okay, let's look at it from an SEO perspective specifically, and what is the level of impact. So we did find that original research does improve your Google top 10 ranking keywords. Specifically, what we found was those websites that were conducting original research, on average, increased their Google top 10 keywords by 25.1%. Those that offered original research and increased their Google top 10 keywords, on average, they increased their the top 10 keywords by 36%. So that level of impact, the level of increase in Google top 10 keywords, very, very significant. And that level of increase was 2.3x the rankings growth rate for those websites that were not engaged in original research. So again, clear difference. How about backlinks? So what we found was the websites that were engaged in original research, 93.4% of them increased the number of referring domains through the course of the year. So again, almost guaranteed. I can't guarantee it, but the data is indicating that it's a very reliable way to increase the number of referring domains and backlinks that you're going to experience. What we found in the data was the average increase across the those websites that were conducting original research was 28.5%. So pretty significant. Okay, so what about something that's kind of new, right? Like if we were talking about this topic, let's say 10 years ago, everyone was using stock photography in their websites and their blog, like almost everyone. And sure, you might do a custom photo shoot for your About Us page and any pages that are showcasing your team, your careers page, your culture page, things like that. And then if you are a technology, you'd probably feature a lot of UI, a lot of screenshots, a lot of, it could be a schematic, it could be, whatever it is showcasing your technology. You get to your blog, and 10 years ago, there's a lot of stock photography everywhere. What's the problem with that? Well, it makes it hard to distinguish between one blog and another. It makes it hard to differentiate one brand's content from another, especially if you're using the same graphics, the same imagery, visually it looks the same. I'm guessing that most of you are aware that Google is striving very, very hard to push brands in the direction of having very unique content that's based on expertise, it's based on experience, right? It's based on unique value that you bring. There is a flood of content on the internet now that's AI based, right? It's AI generated content, and a lot of it is crap. Let's just be honest, it's crap. And you might get a little blip in rankings initially, but what we've seen in the studies that we've seen all indicate that that content ultimately falls off a cliff after a while. And part of the reason for that is that it is so generic. It is just part of a sea of sameness, right? It's a sea of sameness in terms of content, and it doesn't offer unique value. Because what is AI generated content, but it's just an amalgamation, it's a mixture of stuff that already exists, and it's just mashing it up together, right? So it's just rehashing what already exists. What Google wants is truly helpful content, right? And again, it wants your special value, your special expertise, it wants information gain, it wants something unique that's of high value to its audience. And that's how Google is going to win with its audience. So we were curious. Do custom graphics matter, right? Or, is it a case where, yeah, Google's moving in this direction and wants everyone to be more customized, more authentic, more, more authentically driven? But is it showing up in actual SEO results yet? So let's take a look. So what we did find is, yes, custom graphics instead of stock photography. So we're comparing the two, right? Stock photography versus custom graphics. Custom graphics win. They will produce more high-ranking keywords for you than stock photography. Now, we're not saying that that's the only indicator, that that's the only factor here. And so understand, this is just looking at one data point in a collection of different data points, but we were just curious. If we segment out custom graphics, how are they doing? So what we found was there was a difference, but the difference was not as great as we saw with, say, blogging 5 to 8 times a month, or if you were creating online tools, or if you were engaged in original research, right? So I want to be very clear that there is a benefit here, but we want to taper our recommendation by just saying, we're not screaming from the rooftops on this one yet. But we do think that over time, for example, if we have this very same study 1 year from now, and if we are getting together on this same webinar 1 year from now, and we're looking at, do custom graphics matter? My guess is that they are going to double or triple in importance moving forward. And so instead of, say, a 30% improvement, I would expect, maybe it's a 90% improvement if you're using custom graphics. Maybe there's a much starker difference between using custom graphics and not using custom graphics in the future. So there is a difference today. It is more beneficial, according to this data, to use custom graphics than stock photography. However, I'm urging you to consider custom graphics if you're not using them today, because I do think that this is the future direction of Google. They want uniqueness. They want unique value. Custom graphics are just one piece of the puzzle. Of course, it's not everything. Of course, it's not going to, that alone, that is not going to boost all of your SEO results. However, we feel that it is a piece of the puzzle. And if you want to think holistically, and if you want a holistic approach, and you want to precision engineer your SEO program, like we were talking about earlier, if you want your SEO program to be a Lamborghini, you want to look at all of these different pieces. And this is one piece of the puzzle. Zooming out. So what we did find was that there was a 60.6% higher rankings growth rate when you compare those blogs that use custom graphics versus those blogs that use stock photography. So again, it's not like an 8.5 increase. It's not like a 2.5x increase. We're talking 60%. So I just want to say, there is a benefit here, but it's not as great. The impact is not as great as the other factors that we looked at. Now, for those websites that were using custom graphics that did increase their Google top 10 keywords, they benefited greatly. They did see an average growth rate increase of 40%. So pretty sweet. And how about backlinks? And this could be because having custom graphics, it differentiates your content, makes it unique. Someone might stop and engage a little bit more, might be more memorable, higher recall. But it's also unique, right? It's unique, and so probably you'll get more mentions, you'll get more backlinks this way, just because people like to be proud of what they're linking to, right? They like to associate themselves somehow with what they're linking to. And so if you have a beautiful blog, if you have custom graphics in your blog, likely that helps you gain additional backlinks. Okay, so we just looked at a couple of different content formats and the impact there. Let's come back to our database of 250 B2B websites. And let's just look at the top 25. The top 25, the cream of the crop, the top 10%. So what we found with the top 10%, this was interesting. The top 10% clearly was head and shoulders above the rest, very evenly across the board. They had a higher growth rate for Google top 10 keywords. They had a higher growth rate for organic traffic, and they had a higher growth rate for referring domains across the board. So what were they focused on? Well, as I had mentioned earlier, they actually were blogging more. And so instead of 5 to 8 times a month, they were actually blogging 11 times a month. And so, understand when we say, hey, blogging 5 to 8 times a month is better than 1 to 4 times a month, it doesn't mean you have to limit yourself, right? What we mean is a minimum of 5 to 8 times a month. And if what we found was the top 25, so the top 10% of the database, the top performers, they were blogging on average 11 times a month. They offered tools more often than those other websites, the rest of the database. They conducted original research more often than the rest of the database. They leaned into Google EAT, E-E-A-T, so experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness more than other websites. A good indicator of this is they used author bios more than the rest of the database. They leaned into audience segmentation. So for, looking at did they divide up their content by, hey, this is for healthcare, this is for financial services, this is for government, this is for technology, this is for hospitality, whatever it might happen to be. They leaned into audience segmentation. They executed it in their website more. And they focused on optimized internal linking more than the rest of the database. So in other words, a good takeaway from this is the top 10%, the best performers out of the entire database were doing more. They weren't looking for a silver bullet. They weren't just relying on one tactic. They were very holistic in their approach. They were precision engineering their SEO programs, right? And, let's go back to blogging and the conversation of the value of blogging. So a number of the top performers, we said the average was 11 posts a month. but some were blogging 14 times a month. Some were blogging over 20 times a month. For example, one of the top performers published 22 times per month on average and increased their monthly organic traffic by 182% over the past year. 182%, not bad, right? So, we just want to emphasize the value of increasing your blogging frequency. As you can see, whether we're looking at the entire database, whether we're looking at the top performers, it's very clear cut that a higher frequency really helps you a lot. So the top 25 performers, let's just look across the board. What did they achieve? So they achieved a 153.7% average growth rate for increase in their top 10 keywords. Pretty sweet. How about organic traffic? So they grew on average their organic traffic by close to 150%, right? Nice. And how about their referring domains? So they grew the number of referring domains they had on average by 62.7%. So again, really strong. So you can see, top performers take a very holistic approach, right? Really important to understand. They're leaning into lots of different techniques, lots of different approaches that we discussed today, not just one. Takeaways. Again, we want this webinar to be highly actionable for you. So let's look at, some of the things that you can take away, some of the things that you can start actioning on immediately. So as we mentioned several times, you want to be blogging at least on minimum 5 to 8 times a month. Remember that the top 25 performers out of the entire database of 250 were blogging on average 11 times per month. So we would say minimum, you should be blogging 5 to 8 times a month. If you really want to up your game and you're not there yet, blog at least 11 times a month. And, we gave you examples of companies that were blogging, 14, 15 times a month, even 22 times a month. Certainly, don't hold back. And then audience segmentation, we mentioned how this tends to be a unique topic among SEO circles. You go to an SEO conference and you really don't hear about audience segmentation, the impact of audience segmentation on SEO. People are not talking about it. Yet what we found was there was a very direct, significant impact. You should be, if you target specific audience segments, you should be segmenting your audience, then developing content in support of that. It is long tail. You might not see an increase in organic traffic. So set expectations internally. Let your CEO know. Let whoever is going to be measuring performance know. You might not see the results of audience segmentation in terms of the traffic, but you will see it in terms of marketing performance and business performance. We talked about the power of online tools and the power of original research, both fantastic from an SEO perspective, but also what I want to emphasize to you and a key takeaway here is, you're going to boost your SEO results by developing online tools, by conducting original research, right? Those two seem like very reliable ways to achieve significant results, but the benefits do not stop with SEO. You can also look at this for helping you to cut through all the noise, for reconceptualizing topics in your industry, as a way for you to gain and really be a thought leader in your market, right? To separate yourselves from your competitors, to help build trust with your audience, with your expert proprietary data, right? It helps differentiate you from the sea of sameness that is your competition, right? And it helps with lead generation. So online tools and original research do help you with generating higher leads. There have been various studies that have been done on this. I mentioned the Tableau example. We've seen this with our clients through the years. Just know that online tools and lead generation absolutely help you in increasing your leads. Among the surprises from the study, so one thing that did stand out that I want to share with you. So, we gave you all the data, right? Just transparently gave you the data as it is. And so you can make your own decisions as well. But one thing that stood out was we thought that certain content types like online tools and original research, that those would have a massive difference in the growth rate for referring domains and backlinks over those websites that were not developing online tools, that were not conducting original research. What we found was both groups increased their referring domains and backlinks. And so there wasn't that massive delta that we were anticipating. So again, online tools helps you across the board, helps you increase your rankings, it helps you increase your organic traffic, and it does help you significantly increase your referring domains and backlinks. Original research helps you with your rankings, helps you with your referring domains and backlinks. However, we just want to be clear that we were not seeing as big of a delta, as big of a difference between those companies doing this versus those companies that were not doing it on the referring domain side specifically. Budgeting. So, you know, with any type of SEO discussion, you have to circle it back to like, okay, so what are we going to do? What are we going to prioritize? What are we going to do next? What's the short-term plan? What's the long-term plan? Prioritization is key with SEO, right? So how can you budget for maximum impact? Well, if you're already blogging, just increase the cadence. You already have the operational infrastructure in place. It is a lightweight lift for you to just increase the frequency, right? It's low-hanging fruit. Just do it. Do it from this week, right? Just do it immediately, and you will start to see results relatively quickly. So that's one of the first places that we would start. And, you know, it is relatively budget friendly because you already have everything in place. Obviously, there's an incremental cost for the additional content. But when you look at it holistically across your entire operation, it's an incremental cost. Also, another fantastic way for you to find quicker wins is looking at audience segmentation, right? So this is something where you don't have to recreate content 100% over and over and over again for every single segment. Instead, look at it this way. Create 80% of your content that can be applied across the board, whether it's financial services, whether it's healthcare, whether it's technology, whatever the segment, right? So if you're using the 80-20 rule, then it's going to be very cost effective for you. It's going to be very fast, and you're going to see wins faster. Because again, this strategy alone, just leaning into audience segmentation, is a faster way to achieve SEO results. So if you're looking for ways to budget in a way where you can show quicker wins, that's going to win you more budget for your bigger, more ambitious initiatives, audience segmentation is one of those ways. And just a little bit about us. So, you know, I'm Tom Shapiro, as Bernard introduced. I'm the CEO of Stratabeat, organic growth agency. You know, we do target technology and SaaS companies. We are a B2B agency specifically. Everything from SEO to content strategy to authority building to conversion optimization. And here are some of the companies our team members have developed marketing strategies for through the years. So a really wide collection. Also, just to let you know, I have written 2 books, one called Rethink Your Marketing, one called Rethink Lead Generation, which is the more recent book. And if you're interested, they're both available on Amazon. So if you like the types of recommendations that you're hearing here in this webinar, just know that you can get more of it if you jump on Amazon. So thank you so much. I hope that this is very helpful. And Bernard and Amanda, I would be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Oh, well, as somebody who has read your copy of Rethink Lead Generations, highly recommend checking that out on Amazon. Definitely chock full of insights like the ones that you brought to today's webinar. There have been an army load of questions, Tom, and there is so little time. So I'm going to preface this to say that we're going to try to get through as many as we can. And Tom, you know, it's more of a rapid fire approach. I was in the process of sequencing them all kind of based off of how you gave your talk, right? Talking about, you know, blog frequency and then segmentation and all of that. So I've broken it out based off of the structure of, the approach. I'm going to start then with the first question. This came from an email that we got before the webinar. And it relates to, when to invest in B2B SEO content. Someone asks, we write a few blogs every year, and we are a dev tool B2B SaaS startup. And most of our blogs are focused on product releases or other news. What is the best time for us to focus on SEO and content marketing? Should we dedicate a small team to this effort? Note that dedicating resources would come at the cost of not having as many resources on things like engineering, product, or traditional marketing, like conference booths and speaker talks.
Yeah, so I would say that what you have today probably, likely, is not producing results because it's so internally focused. If you're focused on product releases, product updates, company announcements, press releases, things like that, that is not conducive to non-branded SEO at all. And so just want to be very honest with you that you shouldn't expect any non-branded SEO results from that. If you want, what you should do is if content can be a strategic marketing driver for you, think of it holistically, develop a content portfolio, many different types of content, but make sure that it's focused on non-branded topics so that people can find you, and give yourselves a runway. It's not going to happen overnight, but by developing an entire portfolio, then you can produce a lot of bottom of the funnel content as well that your sales team can start using immediately, and that can support you at trade shows. That can support you, throughout the funnel. So rapid fire, that's a quick answer.
That's great. Yeah, I probably have 11 more for you, FYI. All right, so let's talk about business to enterprise, right? Enterprise audiences are a lot smaller, and they're more focused on generating SQLs, sales qualified leads. How can a company that's focused on enterprise validate SEO as a channel, or should they focus more on direct methods like paid marketing, in-person events, outbound? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think you want a mix in your marketing, right? It's not just relying on one channel. It's relying on multiple channels and taking a holistic approach. The way that you deal with, let's say that your specific audience is, let's say, just smaller than other markets, and you think that, oh, well, maybe SEO doesn't matter as much to us. Well, here's how you can validate it. Is your content, are your optimized web pages bringing the right visitors to your website? The way that you validate this is with website visitor detection or IP detection software. There are so many fantastic applications out there, whether you're talking about Zoom Info, whether you're talking about Dealfront or Lead Feeder, Lead Forensics. They identify the very specific companies that are on your website and the very specific pages they're visiting, the exact navigational path, how much time they're spending on each page. That's how you can make sure that you have ICP to content fit. And that's critical. And if your content is producing the right companies, the right people, it's golden. That is sales.
It's golden. All right, let's move into content, right? You've talked a lot about blogging frequency, but before, let's talk about refreshing and existing content. So someone asks, my startup in the early years wrote a lot of content. And since I've joined, I have this inventory of content that I should deal with, or I have to deal with. Should I remove the content that does not contribute? What are your thoughts on content pruning versus keeping, this cadence that you've been talking about?
Yeah, so we're big believers in refreshes, in pruning content. We would say that that's an ongoing activity. So it's just as important as developing new content. And so as part of your content strategy, as part of your content calendar, you want to be continually doing both. It's not one or the other. You don't have to choose one or the other. It's both. Do both, because they're both really effective. Everything that you do on the pruning side is going to strengthen your results. Everything that you do on the refreshing side is going to improve your results. But if you don't have new topics, new content, you're going to be missing out on tons of new opportunity.
Totally. Now, talking about this content cadence that you've been, sharing over and over again, Kendra asks, is there data on how blogs are distributed and promoted outside of SEO? So, she's thinking email, social, paid, what are some avenues of distribution that should be paired with this SEO content
Yeah.
cadence?
So this particular study did not look at distribution channels for content. It certainly didn't look at paid distribution at all, things like that. But if I just answer your question very directly, I would say you want to be very strategic in how you're getting your different types of content in front of your audience. And it depends on who it is, depends on the type of content, and you want to contextualize it for that platform. So for example, your blog can be very, very long form, right? But you don't want just, reams and reams and reams of text, right? You want to break it up, make it more digestible, make it more visual. And here's the thing, we see so many B2B blogs where there's only one CTA and it's all the way down to the bottom of the page. You can't do that. If it's a 3,000 word post, use behavioral intelligence software and you can see exactly how far down by the pixel your audience is going. And in many cases, if you have 3,000, 3,500 word posts, only 10 or 20% of your audience is ever going to see that CTA. So you need to mix it up and have more CTAs sprinkled throughout your page. If you can segment your email database, then absolutely send the right content to the right audiences through email, right? Don't blast everything out to everyone all the time. That's not sophisticated enough, right? Segment your content, segment your audience, segment your email. Social media is a fantastic way to get your word out there. It is one of the most cost-effective things that you can do is just treat, for example, like LinkedIn is the #1 platform for B2B, right? Certainly for B2B technology. You should be using it as a major communications channel, right? Major. You should be in LinkedIn literally every day, engaging, sharing content. Why wouldn't you, right? So yes, absolutely use different forms of promotion. And email and social media are very, very cost-effective ways to do it.
Well, I just quick time check, Tom. We're at the hour. Can you go over by, say, another five or so minutes?
Sure, no
All
problem.
right. All right. So talking about segmentation, Vijay asks, how do you recommend approaching audience segmentation in SEO? You mentioned, kind of being very diligent about choosing your long tail keyword strategy. Is there other things to keep in mind when thinking about audience segmentation in SEO?
Yeah, so what we really looked at in this study, to be very specific, was industry segmentation, right? So are you targeting healthcare? Are you targeting financial services? Are you targeting hospitality, technology, government, on and on, right? And so that is what we were saying. The data was providing a lot of evidence that that type of audience segmentation really works. It really matters and it has high impact. So you should expect high ROI from it. Although again, you might not see high traffic, right? You might not see high traffic, but that traffic that you do attract is going to be much more highly qualified and much more likely to convert. There are other ways of segmenting your audience, and you can test this, you can experiment with it. For example, certain websites might want to target the CEO and the CMO and the CFO very differently. I know of very specific websites that target, say, HR, and they target accounting, and they target operations, manufacturing, and marketing and sales very differently. So it all depends on what makes sense for you and your products and your solutions and your specific audiences. Like, talk to your salespeople. Like, how do they segment the audience? How do they customize their sales pitch and their language depending on who they're talking to? And that might give you a clue as to how you should be segmenting it on the marketing side as well, or come together and figure it out together.
Totally, totally. So moving on, right? There's content and there's tools. Any tips on starting to build online tools? Asks Bill.
Yeah, so I would actually say start with things that are easier and then get to online tools a little down the road. Like that should not be the first step in your process. Why? Because it's more involved. You usually have to involve your product team. You don't necessarily have to, right? If you're just building a simple calculator, like an ROI calculator, you don't need your product team involved in that. But with certain tools that you might want to offer that provide a lot of value to your audience, sometimes you do want to include your product team, or you need to include your product team in order to make that happen. So it's a bit more of an effort. That's why I was saying that it's lower hanging fruit and a little easier for you. And you might want to start with increasing your blogging frequency, or start with something like audience segmentation. And that could be any type of content. That can be blogs that are audience segmented. It can be web pages. It can be webinars, right? It can be, a whole social campaign that you're doing. Whatever it is, that's lower hanging fruit. It's easier to get off the ground. With tools, I would say the fastest way to get tools done is figure out types of tools that does not involve your product team first, right? So like I was saying, ROI calculators, you can typically do that without your product team. But if you wanted to do what Tableau software did, for example, which was offer a free version of their actual application, it was limited, right? It was limited in terms of what it could do compared to the full version. However, that became their #1 leads driver. Tremendous results. They skyrocketed in growth. And so for something like that, obviously they had to involve the product team. So hopefully this makes sense. It isn't that you should be doing tools and having a full-blown tools program from day one. I'm not saying that. I'm saying work your way into it.
All right. 2 more questions, but there's still more. You've been a fantastic speaker, and everybody is loving your knowledge and your
Great.
wisdom. So this one really resonates with me regarding reports and tools and lead gen magnets. What are your thoughts on gating versus ungating assets, right? Like essentially, it as the squeeze page, the lead magnet, but that comes at the cost of great SEO.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about gating versus ungating when it comes to assets?
Yeah. So I think it depends on the type of content. And let's say that you have something that's very easy to produce. Let's say you can crank out an ebook in a week. That's low effort, right? That's easy. So maybe you do not gate that, right? Because it's easy for you to keep pumping out many of these. And you just want to have as much SEO juice as possible. You want to feed your audience as much as possible, make it as easy as possible for them to consume as much information as possible. So that's one type of content. A different type of content might be where you're conducting original research, right? And it takes 3 months, it takes 6 months, whatever it is, but that's a big effort. For something like that, we would recommend that you probably want to gate it, right? That you really want to treat as something that is more exclusive. It's higher value, and there's a little bit of a hurdle to access it. In certain cases, that kind of exclusivity is very, very attractive to your audience. And so you will be getting the right people signing up for it. And you'll be getting more serious and more highly qualified people looking at your content. So there are lots of benefits to gating content where your investment is much, much larger.
Makes total sense to me. My last question, which is going to round out some of the attendee questions, not all of them, is future related. I think somebody says the results look like, they're as of the pre-Google update, the March core and spam of 2024. Do you expect that things are going to change dramatically in the future? And what are your thoughts about optimizing for SGE, search generative experience? How do you think the future of SEO is going to shake out? Tom, what do you think?
Yeah. So we're quite aware, and we totally agree with you. Things are changing rapid fire. They're going to change significantly in 2024, and we all need to keep our eyes on it. and expect change, right? So we understand that. And so our plan with this database is to make it a living, breathing, evolving database, and to come out with quarterly updates so that, yeah, maybe we're providing you with certain learnings today, but maybe in 3 months, we might be seeing some changes. We might be seeing some tweaks in impact. And different things being introduced into the study, different factors that we want to look at. So that is something that is in the works. It's already happening. We're already studying the data for that next release. And so, yeah, what I would say with that is absolutely like you can keep coming back. All of the data we're going to make available for free, right? So you can just keep coming back and downloading the new analyses over and over and over again throughout the year. So that's one thing. Also, with SGE specifically, this is, no one knows, right? No one knows the impact, but this is what my personal take is and what I think is going to happen. I think what you're going to need to do is offer more value in the SERP. You're not going to be able to compete as effectively, certainly not against SGE, for top of the funnel, very generic, very broad types of searches. I just think that SGE is going to kill a lot of the possibilities there. But that's fine, because you can lean in where your expertise matters, right? Where someone is already further along in the funnel, maybe it's middle of the funnel, maybe it's bottom of the funnel, maybe they're further along in their customer journey and they're looking for more specific types of content. They're looking for deeper content, more value. They're looking for your unique insights. So SEO is still going to matter tremendously. It is not going away. What is going to change is just some nuances, right? And where we need to focus. And so middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, I think we need to be prepared for that. And that's why I said earlier, look at your content as a portfolio, right? It is not just top of the funnel blog posts. It's a portfolio of everything that your audience on their customer journey that they're going to find helpful.
Well said. I linked our remaining audience, your research. I noted that it was indeed a gated asset. So
Yes.
you're practicing what you preach. And this has been fantastic. The engagement all around has been overwhelmingly positive. Tom,
Awesome.
thank you again for coming, sharing your wisdom with our audience. And we hope to have you back sometime in the future to update us on what B2B SEO strategies are working for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bernard. Thank you, everyone.